a forbidden affair, a jealous wife, and a young woman who vanished into the night. This is the chilling story of Heather Elvis, a case filled with lies, manipulation, and the terrifying cost of obsession.
Heather Elvis was just 20 years old when she disappeared. Bright, outgoing, and full of fire, she lived in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, a beach town where everyone knew someone, and secrets didn't stay buried for long. She worked at the Tilted Kilt, a lively restaurant where the uniforms were tight and the energy was flirty. Heather didn't mind. She loved people, loved the buzz, and loved being the center of a little attention. That's where she met Sidney Moorer. He was older, in his late 30s, with a rugged look and a way of making women feel special. He was a maintenance man at the restaurant and often lingered longer than needed. Heather was drawn in by his charm. He made her laugh. He made her feel wanted. But Sidney wasn't single. He was married, and not just to anyone. His wife, Tammy Moorer, was fiery, suspicious, and tightly wound. Heather and Sidney's affair quickly became the worst-kept secret in the building. Co-workers gossiped. Some warned her to stay away. But Heather was smitten. She told friends that Sidney said he was planning to leave Tammy, that he wanted a future with her, that she wasn't just the other woman. But Tammy found out, and when she did, all hell broke loose. She allegedly handcuffed Sidney to their bed at night. She forced him to write texts of apology and denial to Heather. Tammy even began messaging Heather herself, cruel, taunting words laced with jealousy and venom. It shook Heather. Her confidence began to crumble. By fall 2013, Heather was heartbroken. The affair was over, and Sidney was back under Tammy's thumb. But something changed in December. Heather and Sidney started talking again, secretly. Just before Christmas, Heather made a few phone calls. Her roommate said she seemed excited, like something had shifted. She was talking to Sidney again, and then she vanished. December 17, 2013. It was a normal Tuesday, until it WASN single quotes to. Heather had gone on a date that night with another man, trying to move on from Sidney. They took a selfie together. She looked happy, hopeful. But when she returned home, she received a call that changed everything. Phone records show Sidney Moorer called Heather in the early morning hours of December 18th. Not once, but several times. Around 3 a.m., Heather called back. Then she left her apartment in her car, a dark green Dodge Intrepid. That was the last time anyone saw her, alive anyway. Later that morning, her car was found abandoned at Peachtree Landing, a quiet, remote boat dock along the Waccamaw River. The engine was off, keys inside. No sign of Heather. It was eerie. No footprints, no signs of struggle. Just an empty car by the water. Her family was immediately alarmed. Heather wasn't the type to vanish, especially without her phone, purse, or any warning. Police began digging. They pulled cell records, interviewed co-workers, and traced Heather's final movements. All signs pointed back to Sidney and Tammy Moorer, especially because phone pings placed Sidney near Peachtree Landing the same night Heather disappeared. When questioned, Sidney denied everything. He said he hadn't spoken to Heather, that he hadn't left his home that night. But the evidence told a different story. Text records, Call logs and GPS data began to fill in the blanks. Tammy, too, had a digital trail, including threats and insults sent to Heather in the days before she vanished. Investigators believed Sidney lured Heather out that night, and Tammy might have followed. No body was ever found, but police had enough to build a theory, and soon, a case. By early 2014, the public was consumed by the mystery. Everyone had an opinion about the affair, the betrayal, and what might have happened on that cold December night. Heather's parents were relentless. They organized searches, press conferences, and begged anyone with information to come forward. Months passed with no new clues, but then, in February, a bombshell. Sidney and Tammy Moorer were arrested. Not for murder yet, but for obstruction of justice and kidnapping. The arrest shocked the community. For the first time, people realized this wasn't just a sad love triangle. It was a criminal case. Prosecutors said Sidney had lured Heather out using a payphone to avoid detection. Tammy, they believed, was also present and possibly the driving force. Their theory: the couple kidnapped Heather that night. What happened next? Only Sidney and Tammy know. In interviews, Sidney appeared smug. Tammy was cold, sarcastic, and openly hostile. Their children were taken into custody. The family's Disney-themed life was shattered. In 2016, Sidney was tried for kidnapping. The courtroom was tense. Heather's family sat front row, desperate for answers. Prosecutors played audio, showed text messages, traced the timeline step by step, but the defense said there was no proof Heather was dead, no body, no weapon, no direct witness. The jury deadlocked. A mistrial. Later that year, Sidney was convicted of obstruction for lying to police. He got 10 years behind bars. Tammy's trial came. Next, she faced kidnapping and obstruction charges as well. Prosecutors painted her as a jealous, controlling woman who couldn't let go. The defense called her a hurt wife, not a killer. In 2018, she was found guilty, sentenced to 30 years in prison for kidnapping, the maximum allowed. Still, no one could answer the question that haunted Heather's family: where is she? Years have passed since Heather vanished, and her body has never been found. But her case still lives on, in courtrooms, in documentaries, and in the hearts of those who loved her. Her father, Heather Elvis, continues to speak out. He holds prayer vigils. He raises awareness for other missing persons. The Moorers maintain their innocence. In prison, they filed appeals, claiming media bias and unfair treatment. But the evidence still casts a long shadow. The calls, the location data, the threats, it all points to something far more sinister than coincidence. Heather's story has been featured in national true crime shows. Her face is etched in memory. Hopeful, bright, gone too soon. Searches have been conducted near rivers, fields, and remote roads. Still nothing. To this day, Heather's family leaves the porch light on. They hold out hope, or at least closure. The case changed how South Carolina handles missing persons. It inspired reforms in how cell data is used and how digital threats are investigated. It also sparked conversations about emotional abuse, manipulation, and jealousy in relationships, because this wasn't just a case of cheating, it was about control. Tammy Moorer is currently serving her 30-year sentence. Sidney, too, remains behind bars, but neither has ever confessed. They've offered no clue about what they did that night. For Heather's loved ones, that's the most painful part, not knowing, because sometimes the worst crime isn't just the killing. It's the silence that follows.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Now, many of you probably know the name Heather Elvis and her tragic vanishing. But what we want to do in this deep dive, looking at the original sources, is really get into not just what happened, but maybe some of the chilling psychological stuff underneath.
Right. And the investigation itself, how it unfolded, even without, finding her.
Exactly. We're setting the scene in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. It's one of those beach towns, looks sunny, but secrets can run deep. You know the type. Everyone sort of knows everyone.
And secrets, they don't stay buried easily there.
So we're focusing on Heather Elvis.
Right.
She was 20 years old, described as just bright, outgoing, full of fire.
Right.
Worked at this place, the Tilted Kilt.
And our mission today really is to unpack all those complex layers, the vanishing of Heather Elvis. We were diving deep into how, what looked like a love triangle just spiraled into this really chilling criminal case. And the core puzzle, it's still there. Young woman disappears, evidence points squarely at a couple, but no body, ever.
It's that persistent mystery.
And like you said, this wasn't just about cheating. Right from the start, it feels like it was about control, a real struggle for it.
That's a really crucial point. And speaking of the players involved, there are a few key people. You've got Sidney Moorer. He was older, worked maintenance at the Tilted Kilt, had this charm, apparently.
Knew how to make people feel special.
Right. And then there's his wife, Tammy Moorer. The sources, they paint her as fiery, suspicious, tightly wound.
Yeah, that dynamic between them, it becomes so central to everything that follows.
So, okay, Heather meets Sidney at work at the Tilted Kilt. He's what, late 30s?
Something like that.
Got this rugged charm, apparently hung around a lot, making her laugh. She felt wanted,
totally
smitten.
But Sidney was married.
Yeah, and their affair, it wasn't exactly subtle, became like the worst kept secret in the building, is how people put it.
And it's telling that coworkers were actually warning Heather off. Yeah, they saw something, sensed danger maybe. But Heather, she seemed to believe Sidney was actually going to leave Tammy.
Oh, wow.
She told friends he talked about a future, that she wasn't just, the other woman in his eyes. It's understandable maybe, but so vulnerable.
And then, inevitably, Tammy finds out.
And that's when, as the sources say, all hell broke loose. Just exploded.
The details are pretty chilling. Tammy allegedly handcuffed Sidney to the bed.
Yeah, that's what came out. Handcuffed him, forced him to send texts to Heather, apologies, denials.
Wow. And Tammy herself started messaging Heather.
Oh, yeah. Cruel stuff. Taunting messages, just dripping with jealousy and venom. It was intense.
What is that kind of reaction, that sort of extreme public humiliation and control, tell you?
Well, it screams possessiveness, right? It's more than just being hurt or angry. It's this desperate need to reassert dominance, to grab back power.
That makes sense.
It suggests the dynamic in their marriage was maybe already about control long before Heather. And that kind of need for power, it can be dangerous.
And this whole confrontation, it really shook Heather. Understandably, her confidence just seemed to crumble.
Yeah.
By the fall of 2013, the affair is over. Sidney is back under Tammy's thumb, as the sources put it. It seems like the end of that chapter.
You'd think so. A really difficult chapter closed.
Right. But then December rolls around and something changes.
Yeah. Just before Christmas, Heather and Sidney, they start talking again, secretly.
Mm.
And Heather actually seemed excited about it. She told her roommate, things had shifted. She was talking to Sidney again. Maybe that hope rekindled. Or maybe manipulation.
Yeah, it's hard to know. And then we get to December 17th, 2013. Just a normal Tuesday, seemingly.
Except it wasn't.
Heather actually went on a date that night with someone else. Like, she was trying to move on.
Try and build something new. They even took a selfie, apparently.
Yeah, and she looked happy in it, hopeful. It's kind of heartbreaking knowing what's next.
It really is, because when she got home that night, late, the phone call started. And that changed everything.
The records are pretty clear on this, right?
Oh, very clear. Sidney Moorer called Heather multiple times, Early morning hours, December 18th. Not just once. Several calls. Insistent.
And Heather.
Around 3 a.m., she called him back.
And right after that call, she got in her car, that dark green Dodge Intrepid, and left her apartment.
And that was it. The last time anyone saw Heather Elvis alive, just vanished after that call, that drive.
It's a small moment, a late-night call leading to this huge, consuming mystery.
Exactly.
So later that same morning, December 18th, her car is found.
Right, at Peachtree Landing. It's this quiet boat dock, pretty remote, down by the Waccamaw River.
And the scene itself was strange.
Eerie. The car's just sitting there, engine off, keys inside. But no Heather, no footprints, no sign of a struggle, just empty.
Her family knew immediately something was wrong.
Oh, instantly alarmed. They said she just wasn't the type to disappear, not without her phone, her purse, not without telling someone. This wasn't her choosing to live.
So the police jump on it, pulling phone records, talking to coworkers, trying to trace those last movements.
And pretty quickly, it all starts pointing back to the Moorers, Sidney and Tammy.
The phone pings were key, weren't they?
Absolutely crucial. The data placed Sidney's phone near Peachtree Landing. Right there, that same night, around the time Heather disappeared.
And for anyone listening who follows these cases, you know how vital cell tower data is. Even back in 2013, they could triangulate, get a general location.
And the pings suggested movement, not just being stationary, which directly contradicted what Sidney told them.
Right, because when they talked to him, he denied everything.
Totally denied it. Said he never spoke to Heather that night, never left his house.
But the evidence
told a completely different story. The texts, the call logs, the GPS data from his phone, it just didn't add up with his account.
And Tammy, she had her own digital trail too, right?
Oh, yeah. Those threats and insults she'd sent Heather in the days leading up, police had those. It was like a trail of digital breadcrumbs leading right back to them.
So the investigators start forming a theory. Sidney lures Heather out.
And maybe Tammy followed, or was even with him. That was the theory. Even without finding Heather, they felt the digital evidence, the context, it was strong enough.
It's pretty striking how a case can pivot so heavily on digital forensics when the traditional physical evidence, like a body, is missing.
Exactly. And while the police are building this case, the community is just captivated, obsessed, really.
By early 2014, everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
The affair, the Moorers, what could have happened.
And Heather's parents, Terry and Debbie, they were relentless. Searches, press conferences, just begging for answers, keeping her face out there.
Months go by, though. No big breaks. Then, February 2014, boom.
The bombshell. Sidney and Tammy Moorer arrested.
But not for murder.
Not yet. Obstruction of justice and kidnapping. And that arrest, it really shifted things in the community. People realized, okay, this isn't just a missing person case anymore. This is criminal.
Prosecutors had this theory, right, that Sidney used a payphone.
Yeah, specifically to call Heather, to avoid his cell records showing the call. A deliberate attempt to cover his tracks.
And Tammy. They thought she was involved, too.
They believe she was also present, maybe even the driving force behind it all that night. Again, circling back to that idea of control.
And their behavior when questioned. It didn't help them, did it?
Not at all. Sidney apparently seemed smug, almost arrogant. Tammy was described as cold, sarcastic, hostile.
And their kids were taken into custody around that time, too.
Yeah, their whole life, this sort of Disney-themed life people talked about, it just completely shattered in public view.
It's always hard to reconcile that public facade with the coldness described in those interviews.
Definitely. So Sidney's kidnapping trial kicks off in 2016. Courtrooms packed, tense. Heather's family right there in the front row.
Prosecutors lay out all the evidence, the calls, texts, the timeline.
A mountain of digital evidence. But the defense comes back hard with the classic argument. No body, no weapon, no eyewitness. How can you prove kidnapping, let alone murder, without proving she's dead?
The no body, no crime defense. It's tough.
And it worked initially. The jury deadlocked. Mistrial on the kidnapping charge.
But he was convicted of something later.
Right, obstruction of justice. For lying to the police during the investigation, he got 10 years for that. Which shows, the system takes lying very seriously, even if the main charge doesn't stick initially.
Okay, so that was Sidney. Then Tammy's trial was next, in 2018.
Yeah, she faced the same charges. Kidnapping and obstruction.
And the prosecution painted her as this, jealous, controlling figure.
Exactly. Couldn't let go of the affair, fueled by jealousy. They hammered on those threatening messages she sent.
While her defense tried to portray her as just a hurt wife.
A hurt wife, yeah. Not a killer, not a kidnapper. But the jury didn't see it that way.
Guilty.
Found guilty on both counts. And she got 30 years for the kidnapping, the maximum sentence allowed. A really significant outcome, especially without Heather's body ever being found.
And yet, through all of that, the trials, the convictions,
the one question that hangs over everything remains unanswered. Where is Heather? Where is she? It's still the absolute core of the pain for her family.
Years have passed now. Heather's body still missing. But her case, it definitely lives on.
Absolutely. In the legal system, in media, but mostly, in the efforts of her family.
Her dad, Terry Elvis, he's still fighting, holding vigils, speaking out, raising awareness for other missing people too, turning that grief into action.
It's an incredible strength. Meanwhile, the Moorers are in prison, still saying they're innocent.
Filing appeals.
Yeah, claiming things like media bias, unfair trial. But that evidence of phone calls, the location pings, Tammy's threats, it's still there. It casts a really long shadow that's hard to ignore.
And the story itself, it's been covered everywhere, right? True crime shows.
Kept her face, her story in the public eye. There have been countless searches over the years, rivers, fields, woods. Nothing. Her family, they still leave the porch light on for her, just hoping for some kind of closure.
This case also had a real impact beyond just Myrtle Beach, didn't it, in terms of law?
Yeah, it spurred changes in South Carolina law regarding how authorities handle cell data in missing persons cases and how they investigate digital threats. So a tragic case leading to some systemic reform.
And you mentioned earlier it sparked broader conversations too.
Definitely. About emotional abuse, manipulation, jealousy, how destructive they can be. Like we said, it wasn't just about cheating. It really highlighted that darker element of control.
You see how something that starts as infidelity can escalate into something so extreme, so tragic.
It's a stark reminder.
So Tammy Moorer is serving her 30 years. Sidney's serving his time too. But neither has ever cracked. Never said what happened that night.
Not a word. No confession, no clue about where Heather might be. And for her family, her friends, the community, that silence is the worst part, just not knowing.
Because sometimes the worst crime isn't just the killing.
It's the silence that follows.
Yeah. And that silence, it really does linger, doesn't it? It's the weight that remains. It makes you think about the lasting toll of an unresolved mystery like this on a family, on a whole town, even on how we approach justice. What part of this whole story, even with all the digital evidence, still leaves you scratching your head the most?